So usually when I'm out shooting feral pigeons, it's because a farmer wants them gone. But I have been experimenting with more and more recipes with this bird. It's true that by their very nature of the meat, they don't taste quite as good as dove, but the meat is certainly palatable, and if you find the right way to prepare it, it can be darn good. It lends itself really well to pies and casseroles and this kind of thing. And I've always made it clear that I like to mix up my diet as much as possible, especially when it comes to meat. I mean, pigeon, dove, rabbit, squirrel, duck, goose, pheasant, grouse, quail, deer, elk, moose, buffalo. I've even had a woodchuck stew that'll knock your socks off. I am not kidding, it was wonderful. And part of why I want to eat as many animals as possible is because of the whole idea of, variety is the spice of life. But also because I think nutritionally it's probably better for me. You would never limit yourself to 3 vegetables. Yet in the United States we pretty much limit ourselves to 3 meats. You got cow, pig, and chicken. And maybe an occasional piece of cod on a Friday night. Let's get back to the video here. Now this building I know always holds about 12 pigeons. That's its carrying capacity. If I shoot 6 out of it, 6 more will show up the next time I'm there. It's kind of the Hilton of the local pigeon population. So I can kind of tap into this source a lot. And the first step I need to do though is get in there and flush them all out. But on this day I was surprised to see that there are no pigeons in here. So that means that they're out somewhere else. In the wintertime, food sources are more localized. So they'll travel a long distance to get to a food source, which means that they're frequently not home as much as in the summertime. Summertime there's food kind of just everywhere and they can stay closer to home. Wintertime they gotta travel for it. Well, no sweat. I got the right gear on, so I certainly have it in me to wait them out. Sneak around the backside of a barn here where I can be reasonably well hidden from them. Obviously the gear I have on, the winter camo, helps out as well. I'm prepared to wait for hours, but a bird shows up within about 10-15 minutes. I line up on this guy, and the wind's blowing left to right a little bit here. I'm shooting a 25 caliber, which bucks the wind pretty well, but I still got to compensate a little bit. So I got to hold for about maybe an inch, inch and a half on this guy. The kill zone that I'm aiming for is right here. But right as I take this shot, he turns away. Now, normally this is a bad thing when a bird moves right before the shot, but this guy actually just pivots the kill zone. The kill zone stays in this exact same spot. Pellet enters right in his back, exits out here. You can see the pellet zinging off here, and the shot was clean through his heart and lungs. It was an absolute anchoring shot, and so much so that the bird didn't even fall off the roof. He stayed up there. I'd have to go get him later. But after this one bird, and then the wait did kick in, and I probably waited another hour and a half, 2 hours, and I saw nothing. I figured the birds just weren't going to be circling back during the course of the day. They probably were going to be out until sunset, in which case they all come back to roost. So I decided to go kill some time and knock down the house sparrow population at the farm. Birds aren't reproducing and nesting in the wintertime, so any bird that you can kill right now is one less that will be reproducing in the springtime. Winter's a great time to cut numbers down. So I'm walking back to my truck, and it happens every darn time. Right as I'm about to leave, I see a bird circling around, approaching the barn. Clearly he's come in to land. And the bird doesn't land close though. He doesn't land at the nearby barn where he lives. He lands on the further barn away. About 90 yards. And so I give him the holdover, hold off for the wind as well. Go see if he's there in the back of the barn. I'm really confident that that was a lethal shot. I think I got him right in the heart. As expected, I hit him solid. And that's great, but that means now there's two pieces of meat on the roof. So, it's time to get the ladder. I'm not gonna film that because that's just bad mojo to me, climbing a ladder in the snow. So let's circle back to the farm, do some sparrow blasting, and then as dusk starts to fall, we'll come back here and see if they've come back into roost. Okay, normally I'd hide behind that pine tree right there, which is about 30-35 yards to the sparrow conglomerate. But I realized when I got out here, this scope is a 50-yard parallax, 50-yard minimum parallax, which means that I gotta get 50 yards away from it, otherwise everything's all blurry. Even then, I don't think I'm quite 50 away, or maybe the scope is maybe 60 yards parallax minimum. Things are still a bit blurry. So I am going to take a couple shots at the sparrows through the scope camera, but if the footage is subpar, not too good, I'm just going to stop altogether, not waste your time watching lousy footage. So clearly the minimum 50-yard parallax on the scope definitely has its drawbacks, and anything less than 50 yards really shows that you need to have a scope that can focus down to 10-yard parallax to really make these shots. So scrap this idea. This scope just isn't meant for this kind of work. So I'm gonna stop with the scope camera, save my batteries, turn that off, spend an hour and a half here greasing more sparrows, and then we'll go back to the farm and see if the pigeons haven't come home. When I returned to the sound I wanted to hear, that cooing of the pigeons. I could hear it inside. I thought they probably all came home, and I was excited at the opportunity to get as many birds as possible, maybe 4 or 5 birds here. Turns out all that cooing that I was hearing was just one bird. He gets the heck out of Dodge, but I track him. I watch this bird and see where he's going. His flight path takes him over some woods and over a hill, and I kind of know exactly where he's going. There's a neighboring farm about a mile away from here, maybe 2 miles, and lo and behold, all the birds are here on top of this silo, and then some. Now the good news is I also have permission to hunt on that farm as well, and I have the opportunity here to kind of film with 2 cameras. So I line up the first camera, but it seems to me that maybe I approach just a little too closely. You start to see a few of them getting kind of itchy here, so I decided to forego the scope camera because I think it was going to take too much time before these guys just get a little too punchy and get out of here. It only takes one of them. One of them flies, they're all gone. Now, I know they're just feral pigeons, but I still don't want to be putting it through one and then wounding the other one behind it. I have a clean shot on one bird, kind of threading the needle between these 2 pigeons right here. I was going to take the shot on the one on the far right, but then I realized there's actually a bird even behind him. So I line up on this bird right here who has no one behind him, and he gets hit cleanly. Here it is right now. All the birds erupt up high, and the bird that I shot is taken off low here. He actually didn't get far at all, maybe 20 yards off the silo, and then dive bombed over here into the trees. Well, I don't know if that shot placement was exactly where I wanted it, but it did the trick. Well, my plan was to save all the pigeons for myself and make them high. When I opened the door over here, I saw a pretty hungry looking kitty. It's cold out, it's winter. He needs a bite to eat. Kitty, 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 kitty. I waited for another 15-20 minutes, seeing if the birds would come back to the silo here. They did not. I returned back to that smaller barn to see if they'd gone home. They weren't there either. I had a great time out. I sleep so much better when I get out in the field like this all day long, even if it's just to the farms. Now if I walk through the woods with a pair of snowshoes on after rabbits, I'll sleep like a rock. But any bit of outside, anything you can do like this really goes a long way toward helping fight off the cabin fever and the winter blues. Take it easy, guys. See you at the next video.